Welcome to Health Activators with lifestyle medicine doctor, GP and longevity expert Dr. Alka Patel. This show will help you to discover a hidden health hacking code that unlocks your phenomenal potential for an outstanding health span, lifespan and wealth span. The show features candid conversations with celebrities, influencers and industry icons, real life stories and cutting edge health activating advice that other doctors might not tell you. Discover why now is the time to join the strategic self-care revolution and experience the profound effects this will have on your personal and professional success. Now, here is your host, Dr. Alka Patel.
Hi, hey, and hello, health activators. Oh, I am super excited for today's conversation because I'm speaking with Ed Van Harmelen. Now, Ed has been a supporter of this show, well, pretty much since its inception. And that's really because we share a very similar ethos, an ethos about sparking a self-care revolution, about challenging outdated notions, about changing lives through the power of scientific innovation. And of course, what this show is all about, which is revolutionizing the concept of aging as well. Now, Ed set up his company Youth and Earth to really fill a gap for something that he needed and couldn't find. And Youth and Earth really has now grown into a leading supplement company, specifically in the longevity niche, and it's continuing to expand and grow. So I want to get straight into this conversation, shed some light, bust some bubbles when it comes to supplements, and Ed is, of course, the right person to speak to do exactly that. Ed, a very warm welcome to you to the show. Before we get into today's show, please do support today's show partner, Youth and Earth. Youth and Earth have a range of products that I love to use myself to supercharge my metabolism, to support my health, and to slow down cellular aging. Just be sure you click the link in the show notes for exclusive offers, which Youth and Earth are so generously giving for listeners of this show. Hey Ed, how are you? It's great to have you on the show today.
Hi, Alka. Nice to meet you.
Yes, you too. So, look, I think I just want to get straight into finding out a bit more about you because I'm so intrigued in terms of how you got into this amazing space of longevity and what your sort of backstory is in terms of what brought you here. And then more specifically, the whole supplement industry, which you're really spearheading at the moment. So tell us your story, Ed. How did you get into the longevity space?
Look, I mean, it's a personal journey. I think, I would say I started off as a patient first. My background, I have always been interested in health. I'm 50 now. At 17, I was kind of going to the gym, working out and doing all those things many years ago before it was on trend. And my previous job, I worked in the city, but I was able to actually travel around the world with that job, and I lived in a lot of countries. So I saw a lot of different types of approaches to health, some more forward than ours. And so I always took an interest on what was going on around me. I think really moving to South Africa, where there was quite really surprisingly very much into their health, kind of sparked some interest. I met some people there, and that was kind of like 2010, 11. So that's like 13 years ago.
Yeah.
So sort of late 30s. And then I started reading about the blue zones and, those 5 blue zones around the world, where people can typically live to their 80, 90, 100s. That sparked an interest. And I think also just my own probably concerns as you're getting older, the kind of lifestyle I was leading, what's going to be the impact of that as I get older. So being more conscious of that. And then I came across this paper on the hallmarks of aging, and it kind of snowballed from there. And then really I was more, the science was there, but there wasn't really so much out there in terms of how to combat a lot of these aging issues. So I kind of got on my own personal journey of, some call it biohacking, other people, it would be quite normal to do these things. Like if you're in Scandinavia, of course, like having hot and cold saunas, it's pretty everyday type stuff. Living in certain parts of the world, eating fish all the time is pretty normal, or vegetables all the time is pretty normal. So really, it's just taking all these things into consideration, and then I think about 6, 7 years ago, I came across a product called NMN, which was, and I started taking that, and that had a profound effect on me, I think, in terms of my energy levels, and started looking more into the longevity pathways, which are all kind of intertwined with the blue zones, and the hallmarks of aging. And I was buying these, products overseas, and there was no one really kind of meeting that need in the UK market, the European market, and that's how I set up Youth and Earth by starting off, and obviously hired a lot of professionals and researchers and scientists to help me come up with formulations. And that's kind of what kicked it off, really. Just, I guess, being a bit of a forerunner in the space and just taking a big interest in it from a long time, and then ultimately deciding to set up something, products that I really wanted that weren't available. And that's how it started.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because I think what you've kind of done in that little snippet of share is kind of given us a bit of a reality check. It's where this has been about initially your own discovery for yourself. And there's this thing, isn't there, which is once you know, you can't unknow. So once you know about the blue zones in the world, and for people listening, as you said quite rightly, these are the areas in the world, 5 big areas where people have been found to live longer into kind of centenarian times and beyond. And I've been out there visiting some of these areas, and it's really incredible. So I think once you know, you can't unknow. And then what happens is that kind of discovery piece leads you to finding out so much more, that what initially seemed impossible really is now possible. So you kind of dropped words like biohacking in there, and that, that's a really, really important and interesting concept as well, because people interpret it in very different ways as well. And I love that you said, well, actually, some places this is just mainstream lifestyle for some people, yet in other places this becomes something that you're doing to hack your health. It's things like yoga, which originated way off in the East 4,000, 5,000 years ago, and suddenly we attach science to it. We bring it over into the West, and we call it hacking. And I love that. Yes, some of these practices are amazing. So let's get into talking a little bit about supplements as well, because I think sometimes the word supplement itself needs explaining as well. And of course, that's an area where you are now a forerunner and have expanded initially based on what was missing for you, but really what's missing for a lot of people. So what's your interpretation of just the word supplement?
I think obviously what a supplement is doing is, let's say obviously your diet choices. I mean, most of the daily recommended vitamins and minerals you should be able to get from your diet, right? I think we can all agree that more or less you should be able to get quite a lot of stuff from diet. It all changes. Everyone's got food intolerances, which we can get onto later, and there's DNA aspects to this as well, where some people don't absorb certain minerals. So you can get some of that from your diet. But for me, it's the supplements that we focus on are more like optimization supplements. So the ones that we are talking about is how do you optimize certain areas of your body, and which you can't get through diet alone. So through supplementation, you can get much concentrated doses of a product wouldn't be able to get necessarily from your diet without maybe looking like a rhinoceros or an elephant. Gonna try and eat 20 kilos of greens every day or something. So I think it's just trying to add into what's missing, really, or topping up. And I don't think supplements are necessarily, like, we have a lot of supplements. I wouldn't say there's one supplement I take every day religiously. I would take supplements. They're to be taken and they're not taken. I mean, I think you can mix and match. And some people think of them sometimes like, oh, it's some sort of prescription medication I must take every day of my life forever. And I'm not so sure I agree with that. I think you do need to monitor your health and obviously do the tests, etc. But that's my interpretation of it. It's really, I think of my body as like a dashboard, and you're just trying to kind of get everything into the sweet spot, right? And if you're not getting enough vitamin D, or you've got some type of inability to process vitamin D, then maybe you need to take like a bigger dose than the next person. Like everyone, what people, one person, 1,000 international units might not be the same for the next person. So yeah.
Perfect. No, and that's I love that. My body is a dashboard, and just that visual of that. Again, I think it exemplifies how important knowing your own body is, understanding your own data piece, and as you quite rightly say, we can now sort of test a lot of this. We can measure and we can map. So what suits one person may not suit another, but you've got to map and measure specifically for you. And there are a lot more things that we can now measure and map as well, aren't there? But there are some things that we just simply can't yet at the moment, and particularly in some of this longevity space as well. And I always kind of tend to talk about, Ed, I tend to talk about sort of supplements. I mean, it's in the word, it's supplement, i.e. it's in addition to. I mean, I've had clients who have got, buckets full, when I say bucket full, like a big bowl full of supplements every morning, as you said, religiously, I've got to take all this every single day. It becomes very, very prescriptive, and yet it becomes like a meal replacement. And that's not the idea behind these supplements. You've really got to think about, what I talk about is very much having these foundational supplements, which gives you sometimes what is missing, what's missing from your food. We're assuming we get everything from food, but we don't always know the soil that our food comes from. And then what's hitting, what we'll talk about later, is hitting that level of your cells that's so important. So there's that sort of foundational level of supplementation, but there's also this functional level, which is very much about targeting what you need, knowing specifically. And I know certainly from your products, you've got sort of ranges, haven't you, that are very targeted to what do you need? Do you need or want to focus on longevity? Do you need or want to focus on your heart health? Do you need or want to focus on your memory? And I think this is important as well to really start being very distinctive about, isn't it? Is start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
Think about what is that?
Yeah, exactly. I would say, really supplements are commodities, right? I mean, everyone sells, but what you're trying to focus on is what's the destination, like what's the outcome that we're trying to get to, and that's what we need to focus on, right? So I don't think like people want to buy outcomes. They want results, right?
Yeah.
Because you're just going on buy a supplement here and there, but they're more focused on what's the result that I want to get. And so I think the products we try and focus on that in terms of goals, what we're looking to do. But there is no one magic pill, right? I mean, if you've got high cholesterol or you've got blood sugar, there's obviously other things you need to do in your life. Like, sure, there's a lot of people in testament where you get to a certain age. Once you've got to that age, your body just changes. Things that used to work don't work anymore the way they used to work, and there's just these subtle changes, and you don't fully understand what's going on. So I think by the time I kind of got into my early 40s, I was much more aware of what it is I need, and obviously I started taking my blood tests and things like that, and finding out a little bit more about what was going on inside. And so our products will focus on different, all backed by science, but they could be anything from sort of cholesterol to blood sugar. There's gut health, skin health. A lot of these products as well, these longevity products, can mimic kind of healthy lifestyle. So, things like calorie restriction, the things that might typically, like these polyphenols that you would get from plants that normally, that they're at their strongest when they're under stress, when those plants are under stress. So really depends. We started off with longevity, and that's kind of still one of our main areas with Youth and Earth. But I do think as well there's a place in there for other types of health goals that we try and fix as well, right? We can't do everything. And I think we will start increasing the brand to offer more products. Like we don't have an eye product, for example, like an eye health product, but that would be something we're working on soon.
Okay. So you're right. Longevity and lifestyle, they just go hand in hand, right? And so really when you're looking at longevity, you're also looking at, your lifestyle as well. And when we think about lifestyle, and all those daily actions that we take that make up our lifestyle. There's lots of things there that really do accelerate aging and potentially can also decelerate aging, right? So I think it'd be really great if we can maybe talk through some of these. So there's hallmarks of aging, aren't there? At a sort of very kind of cellular biological level, these sort of biological markers and things that go on really down at our core that are very much telling of where we're at on this kind of sort of aging trajectory. I don't think we'll be able to go through all of them today because there's 12 of them, but I'd love to talk through maybe kind of what you feel are a couple of those key hallmarks of aging, and really talk about as well what are the practical sort of lifestyle hacks that can really get into those hallmarks, as well as some of what you're talking about in terms of products and supplements as well that can help with that. So pick one. Give me a hallmark of aging.
I mean, I will start off saying I had my epigenetic DNA test done recently, and it came back like 41. I'm sort of 50 next month, so
great.
So I must be doing something right. I don't know exactly, but that's 9 or 10 years that I've managed to gain. And I think the important part we're talking about is not just longevity, but it's the health span. It's taking function. Because obviously, as we get older, we gather all this wisdom, right? All this knowledge that we've got over our years. And then just at that moment, you start losing function. So really, for me, longevity is combining like function and the wisdom aspect. It's combining these two things, right? That I can still go out and do all the things I was doing 10 years ago. And I pretty much could say I am, so nothing really changes for me. I don't really feel 50. I feel 40. And a lot of our customers, I think, well, are like that as well. You see so many of them setting up new businesses, new ventures, and they're in their, sort of late 40s, early 50s, 55, 60, learning new languages, etc. Right? So as long as you're healthy, I think you don't have any kind of metabolic disorders, anything that's really kind of ailing you. But I think obviously the hallmarks of aging is complicated, and they're all massively intertwined because as they're like dominoes, right? As you have these primary hallmarks, so we could talk about genomic instability, telomere shortening, epigenetic alterations, loss of protein misfolding, which you would typically get with Alzheimer's. And as that builds up, then there's like a secondary set of hallmarks. So mitochondrial dysfunction, cellular senescence, the nutrient sensing, and then obviously if they fall over, there's another set which is like stem cell exhaustion and altered intercellular communication. So there's quite a. There is no. I mean, there are some products that can help with some of these things as well, like senescence, obviously. Senescence typically is just happening when your DNA is continually replicating, and at some point, these kind of dead DNA cells start floating around and they start inflaming the neighbors. So that could be the root cause of a lot of inflammation. So there's obviously products you can take, or even healthy, like just fasting, for example, is something that you can do. And what a lot of countries and religions do, just fasting, if you're able to do it, can help clean up a lot of those senescent cells. Your body goes into something called autophagy, and it will clean itself up. DNA damage, I mean, again, just healthy lifestyle, really your environment can play a big part in a lot of this as well. So toxins in the environment, drinking lots of water is really good for you. So I drink like probably 4 liters a day, quite religiously. Exercise, of course, losing weight, all these things. I mean, I obviously do all these things, and I do hot and cold saunas. I do cryotherapy. I mean, these aren't things that, I've done ice baths if they're available. They're not easily accessible for everyone, but I think also like just constantly moving, like, keep moving, keep doing things, keep active. Yeah, I notice even myself, I'm like extremely active, but if I have a week for some reason, I don't do anything or
Yeah,
something. Like literally, like the whole machine starts
so
like
true.
no, it's like all the like the lights start going off, like, and it becomes harder and harder to.
Is drifting into the
Yeah,
next.
exactly. And then like you try to reboot everything, and so all these things like there is, you know, um, even with this DNA methylation test that I've done, and I mean the epigenetics from this study where the Framlington study where they I think it's called Grimage or the Grimage 2. They took X amount of people that had passed away, and then they
Right.
looked at all their DNA,
Yeah.
and then they can obviously have these kind of and things like smoking obviously can have an impact, alcohol can have an impact, all different things can have an impact. So I think everyone's got to go on what they want to do and what they're comfortable with. I mean, I don't necessarily agree that diet has a huge. I think everyone's unique in diet. I mean, I eat a lot of protein. Um, some people will go more with like a keto diet. Um, you know, I mean, I eat everything. I mean, some people may go with like more vegetables, whatever.
Mm,
I
mm,
eat a lot of I say I eat white meat, a lot of fish, white meat. I don't eat so much red meat.
yeah.
I eat a lot of vegetables.
I think the key that you're describing here, Ed, is very much about personalization, right? There's
Yeah, it's
something that
personal.
you're doing that has got your biological age to reverse by 9 years, and
Yeah,
so those things that you're doing that you've just described are working for you. But whether they work in exactly the same way for me or for
no,
somebody else,
exactly.
it's
No,
you've got to know for yourself, haven't you? And I think that's the absolute sort of key thing to take away from this, whether it's your day-to-day lifestyle, your routines, the variety that you're putting into your day, the supplements that you're taking. It's so important to really think about what this means for you from a much more sort of measurable aspect, so that it's not sort of off the shelf care that you're zoning in
no,
on, but
exactly.
more that kind of strategic self-care, so that you're very much more focused on what my difference am I not just noticing, but what difference am I measuring as well? I think
Yeah.
that's absolutely
I mean, the
key.
things I would say I would focus on are like obviously inflammation, making sure you keep inflammation very low.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I take like a liposomal curcumin, which is like a more powerful version of normal curcumin that's obviously used in Ayurvedic. So that's very good for inflammation. Obviously, minimizing stress as well. So, trying to keep your stress down and sleeping well. These are kind of things. I always try and get 8 hours sleep.
Mm,
I take again our liposomal ashwagandha, which helps a lot with like reducing cortisol, stress.
sure,
Um,
sure. So
I take,
you've mentioned liposomal. Do you want to just dive in a little bit to that? Because I think
yes,
again, looking at sort of what's the hallmark of a good quality product and what's the liposomal product as opposed to not. Just share with us the
yeah.
difference.
So liposomal is kind of a delivery mechanism. So um, what we try and focus on is bioavailability. So that means like how much of this product actually ends up in your bloodstream or in your cells. So it's
Yeah.
all about and as you'll know, when when you take any kind of supplement or medication orally, there's something called the first pass effect, which is a little bit like an Indiana Jones kind of journey where really your body's trying to stop whatever it is you're taking getting to where it needs to get to, right? It just sees
Mm,
it as a foreign thing. So there's a misconception, I think, that you take a dose of something like 200 milligrams and that 200 milligrams ends up in your system.
right.
Sometimes it could be 2 milligrams, so really it could be virtually nothing. So really what liposomal does, it acts as a carrier. So it's like a little nano bubble. It was used a lot in the drug industry in the 90s. And within that, it acts like a Trojan horse. So the vitamin goes into the little bubble and it acts and looks like a fat cell in your body. So your body just kind of lets it go through because it doesn't really see it and then it can absorb more directly into the cells. So it doesn't have to necessarily pass through and get metabolized by the liver. It can actually go more directly into your cells. So you get much higher higher peaks of that ingredient. And we've seen anything up to 40, 50 times on studies of like increase in bioavailability. So think of it as a Trojan horse. It's natural. Our product's made from like sunflower, so it's just a fat, and the doses aren't as high as you would see in a normal supplement. So, like if you took curcumin, it might be 200 milligrams or 100 milligrams, whereas maybe in a capsule you get 500 milligrams. But in a capsule, you actually might only get 5 or 10 milligrams of that, and the difference between the 100 is you might get like 30 times that strength typically. So it's just a delivery mechanism really, and that's kind of what we try and do. We have some sublingual powders which you take under your tongue, which again goes more directly into the bloodstream because it's just being absorbed in the soft tissue under the tongue. Or we have like formulas which try and increase the bioavailability in the system. So that's kind of what liposome. We take it in liquid form, so it's a liquid. So it's not we do have one product as a capsule, but mostly it's in a liquid form.
Oh, brilliant. And I think that's really, really helpful to know, because that's a really important distinction, is about the dosing as well, because we can really be fooled. Look at the back of a packet and it says 500 and the other one says 200. And you're like, oh, I'll go with the 500 one. But as you quite rightly say, it's knowing whether that's getting to where it needs to get. I have a number of clients, Ed, and I do a lot of testing. So some of my sort of more metabolic energy level related testing looks at over 100 different biomarkers related to metabolism and energy. And people are often shocked by how low their levels of vitamins and minerals are, because they think, well, I'm taking these supplements. I take these every single day. I think I'm eating okay. And yet their levels are so low. And I think that's very relevant to what you're describing, is it's about what's reaching exactly where it needs to get. So back to, why I find these tests so useful, again, to really streamline what you're taking and why you're taking it. So if your current product, which is a capsule at a high dose, isn't working for you, I would certainly take heed of what you're saying in terms of the liposomal aspect. It's almost like having this the fast pass when you go on a roller coaster ride, right? You get to the front of the queue, like you just get in. You don't have to wait for anyone. You're not in any queue. There's no one kind of turning your back. You're just right in there really, really quickly. And I think that makes all the difference. So yeah, brilliant. So what do you take in terms of longevity supplements? What's your top 3 for yourself?
I take my NMN, and that's I've been taking that now for quite a long time. So that boosts something called NAD plus. So NAD plus is used in many processes within the body. It was one of the first molecules found on the planet. It's in every living thing. Without it, you would just drop dead and die. And it's really kind of linked to energy. So it just, as you get older, by the time you're 50, your NAD levels are halved. So it's really just topping up that fuel tank. And that works wonder, and that's probably our better. And there's, the success rate on that is extremely high. If you're in your, I'd say like if you're 40 something above, really, really high. 50 and above is somewhere in the 95% success rate. People will definitely notice a result. And how quickly have you
found that, Ed? How quickly have you found people noticing?
Sometimes people notice it immediately. I mean, it really depends on how you take it. Like if you take the sublingual powder, because again, it's more direct, it can be within a couple of days or a day. A lot of it, alcohol also depends on like the person. Some people be super sensitive to caffeine or anything, because if you only if someone takes a lot of supplements, then maybe they don't notice so much. But if someone doesn't take that many supplements, takes that, they will notice it. So it could be down to the individual. but I would say it's a really high take up rate.
Yeah.
Especially if you're suffering from energy issues. So that's the big thing. Like as you get older, you want more energy to be able to do.
So many people just walk around feeling tired. I mean, I heard this so much as a GP, endless consultations for, I'm tired all the time. I just feel tired. I feel tired. And then you sort of accept it as the norm to feel tired, but it isn't, right? And it could be down to the fact that you just haven't got that little piece of the puzzle, the NAD, is what you need for this whole energy cycle to just start working. So try it, test it, notice the difference for yourself, because this is a safe product. There's a few kind of contraindications to some things, so it's always important to have a chat, I think, to someone like me, to if you are worried. But I think for a lot of things, you've got to tune in to where you're at now, take something that you believe is going to be useful for you, and then tune back in to see what difference that makes. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And again, NMN's found naturally in broccoli, edamame, all these fruits, but in just sort of trace doses. So, NAD, like what we try and focus on, I guess, are the things that are endogenous in the body. So what I mean is that what do you naturally generate in the body, but over time, those levels decline. So even things like hyaluronic acid that people would talk about with like skin creams, that's a naturally occurring sugar in the body, which over time, it's used to predominantly lubricate joints. But it's used and it holds obviously the water. But again, that will decline over age. Like all these things over time, they just decline. So I take a product called Preservage, which is really, it's got resveratrol, curcumin, and quercetin, and that kind of stimulates something called the longevity gene, sirtuins. And so that kind of mimics what we talked about earlier on with calorie restriction, mimicking kind of exercise. Even the NMN can mimic some of those things you would get with exercise. So even if you do a lot of high intensity training, it boosts your NAD levels. If you exercise a lot, it triggers this sirtuin gene. So they're all kind of interlinked to like healthy lifestyles, but they're just kind of topping things up. So they're just, taking these supplements is not a reason to not do the healthy.
Absolutely. Everything works in synergy, doesn't it? It's just about activating all of it so that it can build that kind of interplay and really work behind the scenes together. And that sort of blending and synergy is the sort of vital piece. So just bust a myth for us, Ed, in terms of resveratrol and red wine. Because again, we hear a lot about, from red wine drinkers that I'm getting all the resveratrol I need, and this is great for my health. So what are your thoughts around that? Because that's a good source.
Well, again, I mean, the resveratrol we get is actually something called trans resveratrol, and we actually get it from something called Japanese knotweed, which is a plant. So we don't get the resveratrol that you're talking about from the grape, which I think is actually a lower bioavailability than trans resveratrol. People, I mean, again, I wouldn't know what you would get from one glass of wine. I don't think it would be enough because I guess the dose would be too small, probably, I assume, right? Maybe a bottle of wine, but then obviously that has negative effects. But like it's all these things like maybe, you see in these countries where they have a glass of wine every day with meal, and then it's an accumulation over time of doing something. Because I always think like sometimes it's not like these big bursts, it's that consistency over time of doing things. So if you're having a glass of red wine with a meal every day and for a year and a half, you might get the benefits of it. But again, also
contextualizing it, isn't it, Ed? Because when you look at things like the blue zones, again, those communities that are having red wine are also the communities that are deeply connected. They're the communities that are also mobile. They're the ones that have less stress. Because if your route to red wine is, oh my God, I've had such a busy day, I get home, put the kids to bed, and I deserve this.
I'm stressed. Exactly. Yes.
you're countering yourself, like you said,
Yes,
stress,
yes.
inflammation. You're just going against everything that's going to be helpful to you. So I think you must contextualize all of this into the whole of
And
your lifestyle, right?
exactly. And I think that's the one thing we can't understate, that in these, they have communities, they have a sense of purpose. A lot of them are still contributing. Most of them are independent. They have jobs or tasks to do. They've got friends, family around them. So that's all things that we struggle with in today's society, right? I mean, I'm a big one for always having something in the calendar, something to look forward to. Obviously socializing, all that side, the spiritual side of things, of course, as well. Enjoying life as much as you can. So I think that's the. I mean, we're fortunate enough now that we can access so many different things if we want, right? So.
Oh, lovely. I think that's really brought longevity and lifestyle to life. I think this conversation has sort of really been helpful to do that, and just your own exploration and sharing of your own practices and what you do. And the recognition is that it's never going to be just this one thing, but
No.
start with the one thing and get that synergy and all of that connectivity start to play as well. So what's the best place, Ed, if people want to start to explore some of the products that you've been describing? What's the best place to find you guys?
Yeah, you can go on to our website, which is youthandearth.com, and you can check out the range there.
Great. I'll be putting that all in the show notes as well. I know you've been partners of the show for a while as well, which is great. So we'll definitely have some great discount codes for listeners of the show as well, because I really wanted to have a chat with you today it's not just about the products, it's about the story and the purpose and everything that comes with it as well. So I'm really glad that you've been able to share that piece of you as well and bring that to life. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you very much.
Oh, I just love that conversation. Isn't it so great when someone's mission to make a difference stems from their own journey of learning and growing? I just love that. And I love taking Youth and Earth supplements, which is exactly why I wanted to bring them to you. So if you go to their website, youthandearth.com, and you use the code Alka Patel at checkout, there's a very exclusive discount waiting just for you. So go check them out. And of course, if you do want to chat about any supplements before you take them, you can just reach out to me. I'm very, very happy to answer any questions that you have. So my email is in the show notes, lifestylefirst@dralkapatel.com. Now, just thinking back to the conversation Ed and I just had, we really did just touch the surface on aging and reversing aging. And you probably heard quite a lot of science-based words about the hallmarks of aging as well. So I'll be getting much deeper into these terms and into these hallmarks in future episodes of the show. But there was one word which Ed mentioned pretty early on in the conversation that I do want to dive into for next week. What's that word? Well, that word is biohacking. So that is what I'll be talking about next week. What is biohacking? Why it's relevant in today's world, where biohacking has the potential to take you, and how do you start your biohacking journey if this is something that's new to you? So 100% tune in next week. We'll be talking biohacking. I love that topic. It's something that I immerse myself in and love sharing. So tune back in next week. And if you've got any specific biohacking questions, then just send them over to me. So you can DM me through my socials at Dr. Alka Patel UK, and I'll definitely be sure to get those questions answered in next week's show for you as well. And in the meantime, of course, as always, I wish you a health activating day.